Okay, fine. This is what we discussed in the yesterday's session. Okay, hope everyone is clear about it. And now we'll start working on this enterprise structure definition in the application. Fine. Fine. First, we'll see the enterprise definition. So, reality, it's not creating the enterprise. You can see the default enterprise in every fresh instance. You may go and modify it. Just I'm taking the term as create enterprise. See, when we talk about enterprise and divisions and business units, legal entities, and other units, we have a different ways of doing. Okay, the different ways we can create in the application. Out of these few units, say enterprise you can create through manual process, and enterprise you can create with a separate task which is directly from HCM, where you can do the consolidated setups at a time. That is one option. When you talk about business units, you can create through manual process. You can create by using the consolidated task which is available from HCM, or else you can create the business units from spreadsheet. I'll take you through in all the options, but we should start now with the manual option so that we can understand later what are the other ways of defining these definitions. I'll take you through. Okay. So first we'll go and see enterprise. So already we discussed we no need to create any enterprise. There will be default enterprise. Every instance we may modify as per our requirement, as per the HCM implementation, HCM solution, how we design. Okay, just we'll have a look where we can find this enterprise, and we'll just go through the information very high level, even it is not related to our finance. Fine. So that you can search from the project, you can find it. Okay, or else since it's a very common task, you can search directly from FSM homepage. Go to search option. Here search for enterprise HCM information. Is enterprise, we are talking about enterprise, but that enterprise will have which information? HCM information, human capital management. So that information only you can set it as enterprise. That is the purpose we have enterprise, which will address the client, who is the client, and how we are going to manage their HCM information. That you can set up at enterprise level, which is the top level in the enterprise structure. So just search with this task, enterprise HCM information. Just click on search. You can see the task called as manage enterprise HCM information. We know very well every almost 99% task starts with manage. We could see one task called as specify ledger options. There you don't see manage. That is just I'm addressing 99% task starts with a manage only. Few tasks starts with some other naming conventions. Fine. Click on manage enterprise HCM information task. It will take us to that page where you could see the predefined enterprise here. Since this is a visual instance, they edited. The one which you see in the fresh instance is default. Name is default enterprise. The default enterprise name they converted to, they updated as a Vision Corporation. Okay, this is how just they just modified. And if you want to modify just with your enterprise, with your client name, how to do it? Go to edit and just go through this information. See here, you could see that name, and you can see the location and the location address for this. It's normally your the corporate office address we use here. And if you notice here, workday information, work start time, work end time, and standard working hours weekly, 40 hours. And you could notice other HCM related information only, enterprise information, worker number generation, employment model. Okay, allow employment terms, override at assignments, and the flex field, people group flex field, and salary levels, and global person, name, language, all the information which you notice here completely related to HCM, position synchronization, location, grades, all the information related to HCM. Okay, so say for example in the first instance you want to change the name. By default you can say default enterprise. You want to see the name as with your client name. Definitely we should do that. Go to edit, click on update. What is the reason you are updating? You may provide, otherwise not, there won't be an issue, because as a part of, if you remember, if you are aware of, in EBS HRMS we have date tracking feature. Okay, effective date tracking feature which will be tracking on which date what changes are done for specific record. So the same feature we have in the fusion also. That is the reason, just you have to specify on which date, with what reason you are doing some changes. So if we can just ignore it, no issues, just say okay directly. It will allow you, this will open all the fields where you can go and do certain modifications. You can override the data selection which is already available, or else you can set how you require the controls. Yes, now fields are open. Okay, you can provide the name. So you may change to name called as, we are dealing with the name called as Cloud Inc. Say Cloud Inc. Corporation. Okay, the location you can select but not mandatory. Generally when we define this and when we update this, we provide our corporate office address. Okay, that we can select. We'll see how to create the locations. Once we understand that, it won't be a difficult task for us to select the same address in this field. Okay, and here any other details also you can modify as you require, but you don't change in this environment, keep as it is, because by changing we are not going to see any impact in the finance. Okay, just this is the point we have to understand here. Okay, so now we no need to do any further changes, simply you can say submit. Just we change the name, we may just be converted as a Cloud Inc. Corporation. Let's say yes. So this is how your enterprise structure name will be ready, or you can update. Fine. So this is all about enterprise, and divisions. Divisions are not mandatory, and even if you want to create the division as an individual task, you cannot connect that division definition to anything. See here, I'll take you to that. Just click on done. There is a one task which allows us to do everything in consolidated manner, and everything you can create in one page. There if you are going to specify division, you'll be able to do the mapping as per the enterprise structure hierarchy. If you want to create the division as a separate task, just it's an individual definition. So manage divisions. Just say create. Okay, just you can enter the information here. Say APAC division, and you can select, if location is applicable you can select it. Later you can provide say APAC division. Everything is, these are not mandatory, actions etc not mandatory. You can just click on next. You can provide the division details, the reporting name, if somebody is just going to monitor or have a, I mean somebody is going to act as a manager for this division, Their name you can provide. If the person name is created in the application as employee name, that name you will be able to select here. Then you can click on next. You can review. This is how you can create. This is a simple definition. Okay, just say submit. These information details are not mandatory. Done. So here this we are not connecting to anything. So this is a one way of defining the division. So there is other way where you can connect everything, this division definition, to all the areas of the information. So when you are going to create the hierarchy, maybe for your HCM purpose or project purpose, this element would be available. You can connect it to, you can select into hierarchy. That's how this could be useful, the hierarchy definition. Okay, apart from this, there is another way of defining the enterprise, divisions, legal entities, business units. So that also will be covering, but not now. That is a separate task. Okay, fine. That's how you can create the division, but mostly we don't use the division as a part of enterprise. Okay, so if you want to create, this is how you can create as an independent definition, or else by connecting with other definition, other entities definition, other units definition, will create. I'll take you through that later. Okay, done. So now we can focus on sorry, one second. So fine. So that's how just you can have a understanding about enterprise, how the definition is available. Now we'll focus on business unit definition. Before we go and create the business unit, first we have to create the location for business unit. Just say the task called as create location for business unit. We know like in how many locations, how many business units we have, those are belongs to how many different locations, all the locations we have to create. So just search, you just enter into the project. You can do directly from here also. By clicking on search, you will be able to create the location, but let's prefer to do all the setups from project itself. Go to implementation project, search for the task called as manage locations, or simply say locations. The actual task name is manage locations. Click on manage locations, click on go to task icon. Fine. So already we discussed in every task you perform, once you land in the task specific page, you can find the search area. Okay, if you want to find out existing locations, yes, you can find from here. But anyway, as a part of our sessions, we didn't create any location. We are going to create the new location. We created a location that is for legal entity. That location is totally different from this location. That is a legal location. So this is not legal. This is a location which you can use for any other definitions. You may use it for your business unit, you may use it for your inventory organizations, you may use it for any other organizations which you define as a part of specific product solution. Fine, just click on create. So here you can provide the name and code, and below you can provide the address. And along with that, just notice, don't try to understand. I'm clearly telling, don't try to understand now. Just notice that here we have one field called as location set. Location set. What value system is selecting by default? Common set. Just notice when you connect to that actual point where we have to understand, I'll explain. As of now, just notice the point. At the time of location creation, we have one field called as location set. Within that, we have one value called as common set. Or else you just take the meaning of the field name. Later we'll see how it works. The set means, the meaning of set is nothing but reference data set. Okay, reference data set. Just notice at the time of location creation, we have a reference data set field. Wherever you see term called as set in any definition, that is nothing but reference data set. What is the use of reference data set, how it works, and everything we are going to discuss. Maybe if we go up to that in today's session or else in tomorrow's session. Okay, but you notice it. Okay, location creation time, we have a location set, nothing but reference data set for location. The value selected is common set. Notice we don't need to focus on this now, just remember that point. We'll understand very soon. Fine. Here you can provide the location. Since we are using the name called as cloud inc, let's create everything with the prefix as cloud inc, so that will be easy for us to do any setups or to select values and to remember. I'll say cloud inc USA location. I'll say just US location. You can provide the code cloud inc US. You may write the description, and here you have to select the actual main address. So here you say cloud inc address. Just I am writing some random test, so it won't makes any difference based on the test, right? So select the zip code. So that system will default city, state, and county as per the address structure whatever we have for US. How system is defaulting this country as United States? There is one profile option which set default country as a US. Fine. If you want to change, you can change it. You can change the profile option also. We'll see that later. Fine. Geography, say United States. Sorry, geography zip code, right? You search for any one of the zip code and select it. Select and say OK. Fine. Just we given required information. So we given the name, code, and we given the address related information. Okay, these details are enough. This location we can use at the time of BU creation or inventory organization creation. Now you can say submit. Now system will trigger one job, nothing but program. Here we are calling as a job. It will trigger one program and to just create this definition and to synchronize in the respective directories where this information need to be updated to use in the further configuration or process. Click on submit, say OK, yes. It will trigger one job. The request was submitted, say OK. If you go to ESS job page, you can see the request, but we don't need to see that. We no need to do anything with that. Automatic will trigger and it will complete it, and the location definition would be ready. Fine. So we create a location for business unit. Now we'll go and create the business unit. Okay, we'll create the business unit which is equal to operating unit in case of EBS. Fine, say create business unit BU, we call as BU. So from your project, search for the task called as business unit. Or say manage business unit or business unit. Search for the task called as business unit. Here is the task called as manage business unit. Just click on manage business unit task. Here you could see the same, and click on go to task icon. Just click on go to task icon. Here you can find out all existing business units in this environment. There are many business units which you could see, since we are using this instance for training purpose. All are defined by someone who is practicing on this instance. As a part of Vision instance, you could see very few BUs. Okay, most of the BUs are created by the guys who are practicing on this instance. Fine. Now we'll create our own business unit. To create new business unit, click on create. Fine. It's a very simple definition, business unit. So if you remember in EBS, how do we create our business group, our operating unit, inventory organizations, everything we create from organization form, which is available from HRMS application in case of EBS. The form remains same. We'll give the name. You may name it as business group or operating unit or inventory organization. Ultimately, for system understanding, we'll provide the classification. Based on the classification only, system can understand and it can allow the definition, the relevant process. Okay, that's how we provide the classification. If the definition belongs to business group, we'll provide the business group, and if the same business group can associate with some positions and other details, we have to classify it as HR organization. And the definition is belongs to operating unit, we have to classify the definition as a operating unit. If the definition belongs to inventory, we should classify as inventory. So the form is same, the definition is same, but only we differentiate based on the classification. Based on the classification only, you can set the other information also as a part of the operating unit, inventory organization, and business group definition in case of EBS. But here, for every definition, they given separate page. See here, for business unit, this is a page. It's not like just you enter as an organization, you will name it as a business unit. No, the functionality they build to create the business unit separate page. Okay, the same way inventory organization, they given the separate page. Already we have seen for enterprise they have a separate page, separate function, which allows us to create the respective the definition which falls into enterprise structure unit. Fine. It's when we talk about the definition, it's not similar to EBS. In EBS, we create something, we'll classify it how we want to use it, or else you may create a specific name XYZ organization. The same organization you can classify as business group, HR organization, and operating unit and inventory organization. One definition can be classified into multiple ways, but here that is not possible. So everything we have to create separately. No classification, it's all about definition. That's how we have. Fine, now we'll give our BU name. Say our BU name is Cloud INC US Business Unit. Okay, if this business unit is handled by a specific manager, you may enter the manager name here. Once you create the employees, that employees information will be available from LOB, but it's not mandatory. Since this is a business instance, you could see many employees details are available from LOB, but it's not mandatory. We have to select. If you want to select after creating our employee, you can associate to the business unit, no issues. Okay, so it's not mandatory. But location you could see optional. Even you see the location is optional in case of EBS also. The reason behind it is we define certain organizations which are virtual. If you take simple example, item master organization is virtual organization, reality you don't see anywhere. So you should not select location for that inventory organization. That is the reason in case of EBS they given optional. But here, even if you are creating the business unit also, they given location is optional, but you should treat it as a mandatory. If you don't have a location, if you don't select the location here, there are certain concepts which will fail. You cannot run the process. Okay, you cannot run the process. One is expense reports. You cannot process the expense reports for specific business unit, which business unit doesn't have location specification here. Okay, so that is a one point. The other point is, if you are going to process customer refunds in receivables, okay, when you process the customer refunds in receivables, what system do? We know very well, system will create, okay, system creates payment request invoice in the payables. So that process doesn't work if you don't have location at BU level. This is how there are certain concepts which are directly connected to location information. That is the reason, make sure that you are selecting the location for your business unit, even you see the field as optional. Okay, otherwise those processes you cannot run, system will fail. They should have given it as a mandatory, but they just given as optional. So even if they given optional, you just treat as a mandatory, since this is a business unit which will involve in the transaction process. So we created location, right? The location name is Cloud INC US location. Okay, this is what we created before creating business unit. Fine. And here we have one field called as default set. Okay, default set. At the time of location, we have a location set, right? Now at the time of business unit, we have a default set. Okay, default set. Here also we have a set. Set means reference data set only. Reference data set. Okay, very soon we'll understand about the top concept and we'll be testing and we'll just see that execution also. But for now, notice, okay, we have a default set at the time of business unit creation. So what system is selecting at the time of location creation for location set? Value system is selected as a common set. Okay, at the BU creation also, BU creation time also, so what are the field we have as default set? There also select the same common set. What is the meaning of common set? How many sets we have to create, on what base we have to create? We have to go very detailed to understand about it. That we'll do as a part of payable setups only. Okay, we'll discuss. For now, select here common set. Search for common. Search, select, say okay. Okay, we will understand very soon. Okay, so how to create new sets, why we have to create, in which scenarios, if you create new and if you choose, how it works, all the points we'll be discussing. So as a part of payables, before we go and create the payment terms, we'll have a detailed discussion. There we'll touch all these points. Okay, done. So this is how we have to create the business unit. So manager information is, the field is optional, the same way you can ignore it. Location field is optional, but you should take it as a mandatory. Otherwise, certain processes will fail. As I mentioned, expense report process. That means you cannot import expense reports from Fusion Expense application to AP, and you cannot create payment request in payables based on customer refund activity which you perform in the receivables. So there, this information will become mandatory for those processes. That is the reason, as a mandatory, we have to take it. Mostly, like when you say business unit, that you have, we always find as there is a physical location most of the cases. So definitely you should address with the location. Okay, done. Any questions here to understand any point, please? Okay, don't think about this default set. We'll discuss that later. We have some time to discuss. Apart from that, any questions here, please? Fine, no questions. Now, if you want to create one more business unit,
Lakshman, I have a question here.
please.
Yeah, see here the location is, even though it's not mandatory, but we need to treat this as a mandatory. My question here, suppose we forgot to give location here and we start processing. After that, can we come back and assign the location? Will it allow?
Any time you can do that. The field
Okay,
work,
no problem.
it will be open.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fine. Okay, so normally when you do the implementation, most of the cases will have a more than one business unit for sure. So in that case, if you want to create one more business unit, instead of clicking on save and close, here itself you have an option. Oh, it's not opening. Sometimes it's browser related issues will create this drop down option related issues. So here it's not, it has to give the value. Fine, no issues. I'll show you that in the other environment. Let me cancel this definition. Here we have like, this is the name we have. So everything works in the, basically in the Mozilla browser. Sometimes if something is not working, we may try with other browser. So go to implementation project. Just click on overview. Open this project, search for the task called as business units. So manage business units. Click on go to task icon. Say create. Say cloud inc US business unit. Select your location. You can try from here cloud inc. Just tab out if it can fetch, okay, or else you can go with the LOV option. Search. Select here as a common. It's not fetching the record, no issues. We'll go and select it. Done. So this is what we discussed. Now if you want to create one more business unit, see, the one option is you can click on save and close. Again you can go back to the same task called as manage business unit. Click on go to task icon. Again we'll be landing in this page. You can create it. Instead of doing all these tasks, actions, you can just go to drop down. Oh, it's not opening drop down here also. Basically if you click on that, says one more option, save and create another. That's it. Seems to in this environment for this specific definition is not working, no issues. Just say save and close.
Try saving first, see if you can.
Yep. 1 second. Yep. That is also we have to notice. No, basically that we have a function of save and create another. Because the drop down will open save and create another. That is the reason we don't need to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's try. I'll save it. Of course, it may work sometimes since it has some different behavior now. Still, it's behaving same. Basically, when you click on this drop down, one option will get as a save and create another. Right? That's how we have. Fine, no issues. So that just notice there is an option like if you click on that, it will allow you to save and to create another. That means we can stay back in the same page. It won't close it. That's it. That is our advantage. So that's how we can create our business unit. You can create one or multiple business units. So after creating the business unit, so you tell me in EBS, you have one operating unit. That operating unit is going to involve in payables process, receivables process, and purchasing process. Where you can specify the operating unit is going to involve in those functional areas. It's involving in say purchasing, procurement process. The operating unit involves as per business, client business, it involves in procurement process, it involves in invoicing and payment process, and it involves in billing and customer payment process. How to specify in EBS one specific operating unit involves in so and so different processes or so and so business functions, we call as business functions, procurement, okay, invoicing, payment, billing, customer payment, all just these we normally classify and call it as different business functions in business. Do you have any option in EBS to specify one operating unit involves in so and so business functions or so and so modules? Do you have any option? If no option, how we finalize that thing for implementation? What we have to do if you are going to implement those necessarily what we create in EBS?
So we assign profile options at responsibility level, SEMVO operating unit. That's how we can say this operating unit works for that business function.
Okay. Any other points to highlight here on this point? Anything else you have to talk about it? The point is you created one operating unit and you have to specify the client is operating the business. Okay, the client is operating the business in the particular operating unit which is related to just procurement and invoicing and payment, customer billing and customer receipt process. Can you specify yes or no? If yes, how? If no, then what is there any alternative way of doing that? By just considering that point, is there any way you can go and set up something to support only what we are discussing? Means that should decide this is what client is going to use. Anything you can map to
So
this?
Lakshman,
Yeah, please.
for when we create each module, for example, when we create payables, we select the operating unit, right? The starting in the payable options and financial options.
Okay.
And the same way, for each operating unit, we create different modules. I mean, when we was doing the setups, we create for each operating unit. So I think that's how the system will understand that at this level, at this operating unit is being used for those modules.
Yes. As you and someone else mentioned, yes, those points only very close to that. One is first we will take the responsibility decision. So that operating unit in EBS is going to involve in, as we discussed, it's going to have a transactions related to purchasing and say payables and receivables. Since this operating unit is involving in these three department related process, will create three responsibilities accordingly. We may create many responsibilities as the business users required as a part of implementation. Okay, to facilitate the setups, we have to create these three responsibilities. You have one operating unit or multiple operating unit, depending on that, we'll use a security profile. Okay, if one operating unit is there which is going to involve in these three application related business processes, to set up that, to decide this is going to be used only these three applications, accordingly you have to create the responsibilities. Once you create response, then you can understand that those are the modules we are going to implement. Okay, and accordingly we do the setups as you mentioned just now. Okay, 2 points: responsibilities definition and accordingly the responsibility specific setups, nothing but module specific setups. This is how we do. Do you think we have a control? I want to decide on this operating unit can involve only these three application related processes. I don't want to allow this operating unit to be used in project accounting. Means I don't want to allow. Reality, this operating unit doesn't have any function related to project accounting. So I want to set a restriction. System should not allow someone to go and do the setups for this operating unit. Okay, we don't want to allow someone to go and to implement project accounting for this operating unit 1. So for example, operating unit name is 1. Do you have certain control in EBS? Anyone please, because we know very well EBS. So do you think we have some option where we can set a control at operating unit level? This operating unit can be implemented for so modules, so business functions.
So many exclusions.
What you can do through menu exclusions for operating unit?
I mean, the responsibility which we are assigning.
No. Menu exclusions we can use for menu. Within the menu, you can have submenus and functions. When you are accessing specific responsibility, within the responsibility through menu, whatever the access you get, and that you can exclude something. That is not related to
MO operating unit.
Lakshman? Yeah.
With MO operating unit, what we can do, we can give the access to particular operating unit for particular responsibility. My question is, I create one operating unit. Operating in travel, I want to set some control so that anyone cannot do the implementation for that operating for so and so module. I want to restrict anyone to do the project accounting implementation for operating unit, or I want to restrict someone in to not to do the setups for receivables or payables or purchasing. Do you have any option? Answer is no.
Uh, okay.
Okay, answer is no. We don't have such a certain kind of control. We don't have. But in Fusion, they're given. Once you create the business unit, you can go. You can unmute. I can hear some noise. Let me complete the statement. If you have any questions, we'll discuss. So in Fusion, once you create the business unit, so based on the business requirement, so the business unit is going to involve in which business functions. Okay, when I talk about business functions, if you talk about payables, in payables primarily we have two business processes, invoicing and payment, sub processes. Those we treat as business functions. Okay, payables, invoice is one business function, is all we call as business functions, or as the business functional areas you may treat. Okay, business functions or functional areas. Payables invoicing is one business function, and payments, nothing but supplier payments, one business function. Billing, which we do in receivables, in AR billing or transactions. So billing is one business function, and customer payment is one business function, and the procurement is one business function, and you receive the material into your inventory, which you process basically through BU association through procurement, that receiving, one business function. Project accounting as one business function. This is how, so depending on the modules what we have, Oracle just given the relevant business functions based on the application related process, they given the business functions. Now you created one business unit called as Cloud Inc US business unit. So what are the business functions Oracle given? I just listed few which are very relevant to us. There are many other business functions which belongs to different applications. So after creating the business unit, what you have to do is, for your business unit, which business functions you want to implement, that you have to select. Say you'll go and set the business function called as payable invoice for your business unit as yes, receivables, payables, payments as yes, and procurement yes, and receiving as yes. Then what happens? System will allow you to do the implementation, nothing but configuration. Your implementation means, in the system point of view, configuration based on the solution which you design. System will allow you to do the configuration for this Cloud Inc business unit only for payables, invoice related setups and payment related setups, procurement setups, and receiving setups. If you try to do the AR implementation in AR related configuration, you don't find this business unit. Reason, for this business unit you are not provisioning, you are not permitting billing and customer payment functions. That means you decided not to implement receivables application for this business unit. Okay, or else you may have a scenario where this business unit just involved in the invoicing process, and other business unit may involve in the payment process. When you consider centralized procurement process, that may happen. And or else here we have one more option to just let me include, requisitioning. Okay, requisition. When I talk about requisition, the Cloud Inc may involve in the requisition process but not in the procurement process. Requisitions, only the job of Cloud Inc business unit is raising the requisition. Procurement, other BU will handle the procurement function. So how you are handling your business with respect to that business unit, Accordingly, you have to set the business functions for specific BU. By following those business functions only, system will allow you to do the setups. If you take the similar case in EBS, we create operating unit, no restrictions to set up any application for that operating unit, right? So you can assign that operating unit to any responsibility if the responsibilities belongs to OU responsibility. Once you assign within that responsibility environment, you will be able to do the setups. We don't have certain control which enables or disables the provision of implementing specific module for specific business unit. And you may have one more business unit called as Cloud India Business Unit. For this Cloud India Business Unit, you may set payables invoice processing as yes, payables payment process is yes, and billing is yes. Yes. Now for Cloud India Business Unit, you are setting these 4 business functions. Now if I go to, for example, simple example I'm taking which we know very well. If I go to system options, we set up system options to as an initial setup for receivables implementation, right? If I go to the system options, in the system options, I can find only one business unit. Which business unit is tagged for billing? I can see in the system options setup only this business unit. We cannot find this business unit in system options. When you don't find this business unit in system options, can you configure system options for BU? No. That means you decided not to implement receivables for this business unit. This is how you can set a control. So for which business unit, which business functions you are enabling in the system point of view, we enable or we call it as we include. Basically we enable, or you may call it as include. That's how the term they're given as include over there. You can say enable. For which business unit, which business functions you are enabling, that you do based on the scope of implementation. That business unit has got a scope of which business functions implementation. Accordingly, you have to set it up. Accordingly, system will allow that consultants or anyone to do the setups. For which business functions the BU is not provisioned, you cannot do the setups. So direct provisioning is not required. How it is possible in EBS? This is a point we have to understand. If you are clear on this point, we'll go and see now. If you have any questions here, please. At any point of time, you can come back and you can include. So now you are implementing for this business unit only these payables and receivables. In future, you want to implement projects. You have to come back to the setup and you have to say for this business unit you want to implement the business function called as project accounting. Okay, you have to set to yes. Then if you go to project related setups, okay, project costing or project billing or called as project fundamentals or say project management, resource management, if you go to that relevant setups, in those setup definition time in LOV, you can find this business unit, not this business unit, because this business unit we are not setting yes, we are not including this, we are setting only this business unit. How many business units this project accounting is set to yes? Only those business units you can see in the relevant configuration. So this is a point we have to understand something else on that. Any clarification required on this, please?
Question. Can we just not set it to yes now, and at a future point of time, maybe 1 month from now when you need that functionality, just set it to yes and then perform the setups?
The same just now I included. Same example I take it. I said initially you included this 4. In future, if you want to implement projects, you can include it. The same example I explained. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions here, please? So this is how we have a control to set up for any business unit. Now we'll go and see that. Okay, we'll go and see this. I'll move these points to the next level here. Sorry. 1 second. Fine, done. Now what we have to do is we have to set up business functions for our business unit based on the scope of the implementation for BU scope. We are not talking about implementation scope. Overall implementation project scope is nothing but modules which you are implementing, and the BU scope is which business functions we are implementing, that we have to decide by selecting the relevant business functions for our business unit. Okay, we'll go on to it. That you can say assign business unit, you can say assign business functions for BU, or you can say assign business unit business functions. Okay, this is a task which you can use. Assign business unit business functions. That means we will assign specific business functions to our business unit, so that only by following those business functions only we can do the configuration. Okay, we can do the configuration. Fine, we'll go and see that. Go to project. Here you could see next to manage business unit task, we have a task called as assign business unit business function. Okay, for to perform this we have to select the business unit before enter into that page. There'll be some setups which allows us to land on that page. After entering in the page we can select specific existing definition, but here if you want to enter into that page, the scope selection is required. We want to assign the business functions for business unit. System is asking for which business unit. You should select business unit to set up this. Anyway, just click on go to task icon. This you have to do only from project. You cannot directly from FSM homepage. Just click on go to task. Before entering to that business unit business function assignment page, it is asking us to select BU first. Select business unit. Click on drop down values. Here you can just opt the value called as select and add. Click on apply and go to task. Here you can find out all existing business units. Search for our business unit. Our BU name is Cloud INC. Just click on search. You can find our BU. Here when you find any record, if you are going to select that record, just notice few points. If you click on the name, it will open the BU creation. What are the BU we create, where we create that page, it will open. That is not the purpose we are here, right? We want to select this business unit. If you want to select the business unit other than this name, click on anywhere. So most of the cases they're given like drill down option. If you click on that, it will take you to the definition. Okay, don't click on the name, it will open the BU definition page. Just click on this record directly. Anywhere you can place the cursor other than the name, or else for every record for selection they given space here, selection. If you put cursor over there, it will show arrow mark. That means that record is going to get selected. If you click that, that's it, it's got selected. You can see in the gray color. Okay, so it got selected. Now you say save and close. Sometimes even you have a location for your business unit, it won't display here. Now it is showing, but if you select, if it is not showing, you don't need to worry about, you don't need to go and cross check. So sometimes you don't see here, even it's there at the BU definition level. Okay, just notice that point. Say save and close. See, so this is our business unit. These are seeded predefined business functions which are given by Oracle. So which business functions we are going to implement for this business unit, those we have to enable, nothing but we have to assign. Here they given assign, here they given enable. Okay, you can call as assign or enable. Okay, and the same time so in case of EBS we just will keep responsibility concept. To responsibility will be assigning our primary ledger, we assign our operating unit, but here we don't have responsibility. Okay, so when we talk about this business unit, we have to map our primary ledger to the business unit. That also you can do by using this assign business unit business functions. The primary task here is we include business functions along with that. So you have to associate your primary ledger to your business unit here. Okay, you have to associate your primary ledger to this business unit. So go to primary ledger field, assign your primary ledger to this business unit, which is our primary ledger. Cloud Inc. USA primary ledger. Search, select. You can click on the name if the name is not showing as a hyperlink. If it's showing some hyperlink, better don't click on the name, click next to that so that it won't drill down. Most other search it won't have a hyperlink. So just we select it. We have only one legal entity which is associated to this primary ledger. So the one system is defaulting. One you should select as a default legal entity. Now it is showing these are optional. What is the reason? We not yet specified any business functions. If you specify business functions, if you have a business functions, you'll be operating, you'll be performing the transactions. Accordingly, you'll do the setups. In that case, definitely when you record the transaction, business unit and legal entities are mandatory. If you enable these will make it as a mandatory. Let's see that point also. I'm not selecting this. We'll select later. Fine. I'm just ignoring it. Okay. Battery will come back. No issues. I selected. It may misunderstand and it may behave in different way. So first time we selected scope, that got selected here. From next time onwards, when you are going to this page, you're going to select scope, directly click on go to task icon, will be landing on that page. Fine. For this business unit, say you are going to implement payables, you just look for the business functions. Business unit, business functions. Select all business functions that this business unit will perform, will involve. So you are going to implement payables. So for payables, we have invoicing process and payment process. Why they given separate? Why they didn't provide as a payables? There will be business scenarios. If you consider centralized procurement process that enables one business unit to do the invoicing, another business unit can process the payment by following one BU will raise the requisition, another BU will have a procurement, okay, and another BU will have invoicing. This is how just decentralization can be possible across the business unit to support that centralized procurement process. And for all the business functions, they segregated and they given accordingly. You can do the implementation when you fall into that sort of implementations. Okay, scenarios. Okay, so select here if you want to implement payables. Enable business function called as payables invoicing and payables payment. Now you can go on to do the setups for this business unit for payables. You cannot do setups for this business unit for any other application. Since we selected, we should associate primary ledger and default legal entity to our BU. Since we enabled so one or more than one business unit or business functions, these will become mandatory. You can see the star mark. Earlier not. These are optional earlier. So that's how just you can associate, okay, your primary ledger. You can type here Cloud Inc. Just tab out. Generally it should fetch the value. If it is not fetching, just type and tab out, it should fetch. In the most of the functions it works. Okay, for this I think they didn't apply that logic. No issues, you search it, select and say okay, and it will default the legal entity. There will be some business scenarios where so you'll have there are business cases which you come across. So even you have a one business unit, okay, that business operation, the business transaction which you record, that may point to multiple legal entities also. Again, that legal entity mapping may be with multiple balance and segment values. In that case, we don't need to worry about it. Whatever we are selecting here, One we have to select as default. We are not hard coding this be a legal entity for this BU related transactions through this primary ledger. Just it's a default. When we are recording the transactions, we know very well we can override the legal entity selection. If you have multiple legal entities at the time of transaction creation, we can do it. This will be defaulted. You can change it, okay, based on the transactions. Okay, we selected, we assign the same way. What are the modules or what are the business functions we are going to implement for this business unit? Those we have to select here. We selected for payables the same way. Billing and revenue management. Okay, so if you are going to implement just receivables transaction process, billing is enough. The revenue management cloud services you may implement, may not implement. The common business function they given, since those are tightly connected, so even if you are going to implement just billing in receivables, enable it. Okay, so customer payments receipt process, if you enable this too, this will support us to implement receivables application. It will allow us to do the receivables configuration. Okay, collection management, nothing but advanced collections. If you are going to implement advanced collections, you have to enable this business function. Otherwise, you cannot do any setup for this business unit related to advanced collections. And expense management, if you want to implement fusion expenses, you should enable it. In the same way, you can go through it. There are many business functions which says, okay, which business function you want to enable. So you can see that if you want to implement PPM, project management, project portfolio management, you should enable it. Out of PPM, the primary modules we know which involves in accounting, those are nothing but costing and billing, which we call as project accounting, because costing and billing only will involve in the accounting process. Those two combinedly we call as project accounting, so which allows you to do the accounting for project related activities on costing and billing. So if you are going to implement, you can enable it. If you are going to enable the process for this business unit, it's all about receiving the material, receiving to create the receipts. You can enable receiving. If you are going to have a process business function called as raising the requisitions from this BU, enable it. If you are going to implement CRM sales, you can enable it. This is how just you can enable whatever reality the client is going to implement, and that's how you can set it up. Now just for testing, you can enable everything so that any application related configuration you will be able to do it, or else when you practice you may enable specific which you require, which you are going to implement, and you can practice it. Okay, so any questions here, please? And here we have one checkbox you could notice below legal entity. As a part of SCM, okay, we have a profit center business unit business functionality which enables you to track the transactions, to track the profitability. Okay, to track the profitability, inventory level also, where the business one where this BU will be involved. In that case, we should use only one legal entity, only legal entity. You just place cursor here, it will give the note. Indicates that the business unit is a profit center and it operates under one legal entity. Okay, so if you want to have a tracking of profitability, okay, for specific business unit, you should have only one legal entity. That's how the model they're given. If you enable this legal entity is profit center, profit center, this business unit is a profit center business unit. So this business unit you will be able to select at the time of inventory creation as a profit center business unit. Otherwise it will be normal business unit. Okay, that is just mapped with the process called as inventory related process. Okay, this functionality is a legacy of PeopleSoft. So this we don't need to do anything with this. If SCM people are going to do the implementation of SCM and they want to do all the setups, okay, we have a that accounting like as a part of SCM we have a cost accounting, receipt accounting. In those processes, to do the setups related to profit center related tracking, they have to do some accounting related setups to enable that accounting process, where this business unit enabled in that process of performing the accounting entries. as a mandatory they will enable here, then that would be available over there. Any point of time you can make any business unit as a profit center business unit, which will be connected, which will be mapped at your inventory level, so that within that inventory when you do the transactions and all, those can be captured into the profits and profitability analysis purpose, where system creates accounting entries inventory side with associated with that inventory organization. Okay, that's a totally different story. So here just we have to notice here we have that control. If you enable, then only this inventory they can make as, sorry, this business unit they can use as a profit center business unit for their inventory organizations. That's more related to SCM inventory part. So this is how we have to assign business functions to our BU, and we have to map our primary ledger and one default legal entity to our business unit. Any questions here, please?
Is it okay if we enable and not do the setups, say for receivables? So just enable it and not do the setups.
Yes.
Will that cause problem?
That's how we have by default in EBS, right? In EBS, by default, everything is allowed.
Yes.
Whether you do or not, that depends.
Okay.
That's it. So any point of time you can come and you can enable this business functions here. Okay, no restriction.
I didn't see any business functions.
Your voice is very low. Your voice is very low. Your voice is
Clear
no
now?
voice now. Who's speaking?
This is weird.
No, we can't hear you. We can notice as you are speaking something.
I didn't see any business functions relating to fixed assets and cash management.
Okay, good. So there are certain business functions which they don't provide here. By default, you can get the access. You don't see for general ledger also, because that is a fundamental thing if you want to implement any application. That is the reason they didn't give. So again, that that application also, like the fixed assets also, it's not more or less BU specific. It's not BU specific, right? So these business functions, what specific business functions? Business unit specific, right? Veer?
Yeah.
So do you think like that has to be set at BU level, decision making? No, right? The fixed assets are not BU level or OU level as per EBS. That's a ledger level. Ledger is mandatory. Okay, here we are talking about BU specific.
Okay. Cash
That
management
reason
is
those we don't have.
legal entity. That is why they didn't give.
No, I cannot understand your question because very low voice you have. You please check your audio connectivity and make sure that you kept very high level of volume. We cannot hear you. Just check it.
Yeah, I understand. I'm in a hotel. This internet is not good here. Okay, I can understand. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Fine. Any other questions here, please? No questions. Okay. Here also, let's see here it's coming or not. Here also the function is. Here also you can, if you want to set the same business function for other BU, you can just click on drop down. Basically, it show one function called as save and create for other. Okay, no issues anyway. Now not required. Say save and close. Okay. So what we did, we created location for business unit. Even the field is optional. As a mandatory, you have to select. That is the reason we created location. Reality location, the physical location would be for most of the business units. And we created then business unit by selecting the location, and we assigned business functions to BUs, which enables us to do the configuration. If you cannot do the configuration, you cannot do the process. That is a dependency, right? So you just first you have to enable the business functions. Once you enable, you can do the setups. Later you'll be able to work on the same process. Okay, done. So business unit is ready and with the required business functions. Okay, fine. Now what is the next task? After completing this, we can go on to create the employee user. Okay, we can go and create the employee user. Here we have to talk about few dependency points. Well, right here. So just I may write here. So I create employee user. When you create employee user, the employee user creation time, we have to select legal entity. Okay, we have to select legal entity. Okay, at the time of employee user creation time, we have to select legal entity. Yes, we can select it. Reason, we have legal entity ready. We created legal entity ready. Okay. When you select legal entity at the time of employee user creation, what system will do is, system will have a validation the legal entity is running which country payroll. That means what system will try to understand is, we are creating employee. The employee, okay, the employee is employee definition we are going to take into the system by following which legal employer. Legal entity is nothing but legal employer. Who is the legal employer for this employee? System should understand. That is the reason we have to select the legal entity. When you specify legal entity, then system will understand, okay, this employee belongs to so and so legal entity, so and so legal employer. Okay, done. This employee belongs to so and so legal entity or legal employer, but this employee payrolls are running from which country. Okay, that employee, we already discussed, employee user is nothing but employee creation and giving the username for the same employee. That is the meaning of employee user. Reality, it's an employee definition including the username. That's all. That means you are, as a part of employee user, you are creating employee primarily. For that you are giving the username. That's all. So you are giving the employee, you are creating employee. When you create the employee as a part of definition, it should understand this employee belongs to which legal employer, nothing but legal entity, and that employee falls under which payroll process. These 2 points it has to understand. If you select legal employer at the time of employee, just legal employer, legal entity, if that legal entity is not connected with the specific country payrolls, it won't accept to select that legal employer, legal entity. It says the legal entity which you are selecting is not associated with the specific payroll process. It gives that meaning. That means we have to establish the connectivity, the specific country payroll, the payrolls you have to map with legal entity. Instead of entity, you may call as legal employer. Both are same. Just let's call it as entity. So first you have to create one country payroll definition. That payroll you have to map with a legal entity. This legal entity you can assign to employee user. Okay, when you create employee user, if you select legal entity which is available directly, no, it won't work. First you have to create one payroll definition in the application by pointing specific country. Reality, this legal entity belongs to which country. For that country only we create one payroll definition. That payroll, first step is we have to create the specific country payroll. That we have to, second step is we have to assign to legal entity. Reason, legal entity already we have. 2 steps we have to perform. Then that legal entity you can select into employee user definition. The country payroll definition we do with the concept called as legislative data group. Data group. The data which is belongs to specific, it's a data is data group. It's grouping the data where the data refers always specific country for payroll process. This LDZ for payroll process. LDZ we call. The reality, this LDZ creation, the LDZ association with the legal entity should be done by HCM consultants. If implement is going to happen for finance, SCM, HCM, definitely we follow the sequence of configuration, right? First we have to start what they have to complete so that the other areas can be implemented. The sequence will follow. When you talk about HCM, SCM, finance, what is the sequence we follow? Very primarily in GL, we have to get ready with the primary ledger. Then HCM people can create the basic definitions, and then SCM can start with the configuration. The rest of core configuration will be done by finance people as a part of finance. This is how the sequence and dependency we have. So that has to be followed. But here, if you are going to implement all these, so before we go and create the legal employee users, so these setups will be ready from HCM consultants. But anyway, these are pretty simple setups. Even you can perform. Say your client is going to implement only financials. Maybe the rest of data they are going to bring from third-party systems. So you are going to implement this Fusion Cloud Financial for one of the banking client. So in that case, they may use finance only for reporting. So if they are going to bring the data from other systems, the integrations and everything will be taken care by the technical team, so our team, and anyway will be there for data mapping, field mapping with that system to our system. So apart from that, since you are not implementing HCM, so you don't need to think we don't have HCM related access. Yes, we'll have access which got dependency when we implement finance or SCM or PPM. That dependency related setups always will be available even if your client is not subscribing. So in that case, definitely we should create these legislative data group and mapping legislative data group to specific legal entity or nothing but legal employer. So it's a pretty simple setups. We'll go and perform it. When you talk about in sequence, if you want to create the legal employer, we have to select the legal entity that has to be mapped with the payroll statutory unit. Okay. So that is the reason just LDZ we have to create, legislative data group we have to create. So we'll just go and do it. The LDZ you can call in other words payroll statutory unit also. Okay, but in the system point of view, we'll create as a legislative data group. So let me write those 2 points. If you have any questions, we'll discuss. So first we have to create. 1 second, let me complete this. I'll take your questions. First we have to create legislative data group. Group which represents specific country payroll. Legislative data group is country specific, which we use in HCM to run the payrolls. Because employees belongs to which payrolls, that has to be addressed with this definition itself. Okay, you created legislative data group, which is simple definition. Now you have to assign. Now you have to assign the LDG, legislative data group, to legal entity. If LDG is associated with the legal entity, that legal entity only we can use here. Otherwise, it won't allow you to use it. Then by selecting that legal entity and business unit, we create employee user. Now any questions on this point, please? That's what we do. This is the sequence we follow.
Lakshman, this is Murali.
See, 1 second, Murali, please don't mind. No introduction is required. Directly you can ask anyone, directly ask questions. I can see your name when you speak. I could see you are talking. That's how I identify. Okay, names are not required. Please don't mind. Directly you can raise your question.
Yeah, question is like, is it the same behavior in R12? Because R12 is we assign the business group to employee record, but since we don't have business group functionality in Fusion, is something that we are creating the LDG and assigning to the legal entity. Is it different?
Yeah, similar. You can, yes, that point you can connect with this. In EBS, we create employees. We create employees within the business group. Right? We'll create the employees within the business group. Business group will be holding. Okay. So the business group, whatever you have, like that that will be belongs to specific country, or else you can create the HR organizations country wise as per the requirement. So this point you can relate it to, you can relate. So here LDC means country specific. The employee which you are creating, that should belongs to specific country, but here the LDC more related to payroll. When you are running the payroll, that is related to people only, right? So that's how you can just connect that point. This is similar to creating employee within the business group. And it's a business group that will belongs to a particular country, and accordingly they'll run the payrolls. But here directly we are connecting with the object called as a legislative data group, which directly talk about payrolls process. Similar, yes, what you addressed, that's true. The same similarity. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, please. Fine. Now we'll go and perform these setups. Okay, first we'll go and create the legislative data group for US. This is country specific, and we assign that legislative data group to our legal entity, which is already created. And finally, by selecting the LE, means legal entity and business unit, will create the employee user creation. Fine. So I think it's 9:30. Yeah, it's 9:30. So we'll do this in the next session. Okay. We have to spend time. It's not like we should not be ready to rush and complete these setups now. Okay, we'll just complete these in the next session so that we can spend some time for discussion or to take your questions or anything. So this is all about today's session. Okay, so we're done with the session, and if you have any questions, you can stay back, or else we may just quit from the meeting. Okay, so any questions from anyone, please?